last time we talked about Charlie Kirk, and since then we have a lot of conspiracy theories coming out. But the main issue would be the case of Israel. That the letter that Charlie Kirk wrote to Israel 2 days ago, we had an article on New York Post saying that in that letter he wrote about his deep love for Israel. And yesterday, Candace Owens, during her podcast, she challenged TPUSA about the way that Charlie Kirk really felt about Israel. Here is what she said before going to your comment. Thanks.
Turning Point USA executives to issue a very clean statement saying that I am lying if this is not true. About 48 hours before Charlie Kirk died, Charlie informed people at Turning Point, as well as Jewish donors and a rabbi, that he had no choice but to abandon the pro-Israel cause outright. Okay, Charlie was done. He said it explicitly that he refused to be bullied anymore by the Jewish donors. Can you guys answer? Did he express that? Did he also express that he wanted to bring me, Candace Owens, back because he was standing up for himself? And then did he, just 48 hours later, conveniently catch a bullet to the throat before our onstage reunion could happen? It's a yes or a no. Okay, let's stop this ditching. Let's stop the dodging. Let's explicitly, I want to hear from Turning Point USA that I'm lying about that. I want you to say no.
Yeah, you get the way that she's. But how do you see the whole situation with Charlie Kirk and Israel, Max?
I mean, it's a bigger discussion about the American public in Israel and the complete collapse of American support. And so there was this letter that Netanyahu initially presented when he wanted to claim the legacy of Charlie Kirk, but he didn't release the full letter and just said, Charlie sent me a letter and it outlines his love for Israel. And I invited him to come to Israel 2 weeks before his death. Netanyahu didn't say if Charlie Kirk had agreed to come to Israel. He didn't explain what the contents were. And so Candace Owens has been demanding that he release the full letter. And I did so as well on the show of Charlie Kirk's friend, Matt Gaetz, who also is very uncomfortable with the special relationship in which Israel dominates American affairs in the region and basically bosses around the president and Congress. This is a former member of Congress. So Netanyahu does, soon after that, or someone close to Netanyahu releases this letter. It was obviously an exercise in damage control. And the letter is a digital reproduction of something. It's undated. And what it contains is more complex than the way some who have either deliberately attempted to spin it to make Charlie Kirk seem like this diehard, dyed-in-the-wool, ride or die Israel supporter, or though, like for example, Bill Ackman promoted that letter, as well as the New York Post. Bill Ackman, the billionaire Netanyahu cutout, who I exposed for hosting this secret pro-Israel influencer summit with Charlie Kirk back in August. So he was determined to show that Charlie Kirk was on board with Israel. And so too was the New York Post, which is a vehicle for Netanyahu's propaganda machine. But if you look at the letter, the contents are much more complex. I mean, and you can see Charlie Kirk doesn't understand the position he's in as a Israeli subcontractor. And he's asking Netanyahu and Israel to do the work of Israeli propaganda in the US rather than contract out to all of these highly influential Gentiles. He doesn't get how it works. The other thing is the letter supposedly was dated in May. And it's almost like it felt like light years away from where Charlie Kirk wound up in August following this very uncomfortable influencer summit where he was screamed at by a Zionist fanatic who's a UK lawyer named Natasha Hausdorff. And basically, if you look at the timeline and the chronology, the letter comes out in May. He also is urging Netanyahu to make his own case for the war on Iran and stating that the American public is against the war and that he doesn't want to be a lobbyist for a war for another country in that letter. The war comes in June. Charlie Kirk is in the White House lobbying against the war. That's a fact. I reported that first, and then J.D. Vance, the vice president of the U.S., corroborated what I reported, as did Tucker Carlson. Then July, the Student Action Summit of TPUSA in Florida, where Tucker Carlson lashes out at Bill Ackman, everyone from him to Megyn Kelly to Rob Schneider, the comedian, calls Jeffrey Epstein a Mossad agent and says the president needs to, tell the public the truth, which made Trump very uncomfortable, as well as Israel. And they have this debate about the Gaza genocide with comic Dave Smith, an anti-Zionist Jew, on stage. You're not supposed to debate this. So Charlie Kirk he's not doing what his donors want. His donors want total loyalty to Israel, and they want the influential Gentiles to make the case for the self-proclaimed Jewish state in the US. He's not doing it anymore. Then the Influencer Summit in August. A day after that summit, he goes on former Fox News host the show of former Fox News host Megyn Kelly, and complains about stakeholders and funders who are bossing him around, and complains, I have less ability to criticize Israel than Israelis do. So it's very clear there's a difference in what happened between August and May with Charlie Kirk. And then, as I reported, he lost one of his biggest, if not his absolute biggest donor a month later, right before his death, Robert Shillman, who is not just an anti-Palestinian Likudnik billionaire money man in the United States. He's an anti-Islam activist. He funds Tommy Robinson to wage a race war in the UK. He's funding Laura Loomer. He has funded Laura Loomer. He funded Geert Wilders, the politician in the Netherlands who wants to ban the Quran. This is like an extreme figure. And he actually, according to my sources, and haven't heard anything from Robert Shillman, demanded that a plaque that was going to be erected inside TPUSA headquarters in Phoenix not go up in his name, took the money away. I mean, we're talking about over $6 million here that he has allegedly contributed. So by the end, as I also revealed, there were these Zoom calls that Charlie Kirk had to call into constantly, where he would meet with a consortium of 10 or so Netanyahu cutouts in the US. One of them was Sean McGuire from Sequoia Capital, who I think helped coordinate Elon's visit to Israel. Fanatical Zionist, said Zoran Mamdani comes from a culture of deception. Joshua Hammer from Newsweek, he's an editor who called for, on October 8th, 2023, called for Gaza to be razed to the ground and turned into a football stadium. And Bill Ackman. Then there was this rabbi, an American rabbi who now lives in an Israeli settlement, Pesach Wolicki, who was basically Charlie Kirk's personal Israeli handler, and said that he was speaking to him on an almost daily basis. Charlie Kirk was pushing back, and that they were trying to establish a WhatsApp group so they could basically, instead of speaking to him daily, speak to him minute after minute about what to say on his upcoming tour. And they were really worried about his upcoming tour because these Netanyahu cutouts believed that Charlie Kirk would be besieged by students, conservative students, asking him uncomfortable questions about the U.S.-Israeli relationship. And they wanted him to defend Israel, and they didn't think he was going to do it. So Netanyahu could not credibly claim Charlie Kirk's legacy as he was shifting. And my understanding, based on what Candace publicly said, is that she was having conversations with Charlie Kirk towards the end about his transformation. And I'm hoping that she will come out with more. But this letter was an obvious exercise in damage control. And anyone who's, on the, anti-Zionist side, who believes that that letter shows that Charlie Kirk was just this pro-Israel fanatic and doesn't understand the real role he was playing and what it says about the larger role of political operatives who are basically relying on this Zionist billionaire donor class in the US, is playing Netanyahu's game, advancing his game. And now, I mean, we're how many weeks out from this assassination? We've learned so much. There's still so many questions about the assassination itself, but we've learned so much more about how Netanyahu is operating. When I say Netanyahu, it's because he represents the dominant political mafia in Israel, which has entrenched itself, particularly within the Republican Party, through money from the Adelsons, the Marcus family, various other sort of Zionist mafias in the U.S. And they're totally focused on the Republican Party and the conservative grassroots, which is why I say Netanyahu cutouts. And why? Because there's no point in dealing with the Democratic Party grassroots, which is sort of like progressives, progressive youth. They're done. They're in every poll, it shows single-digit support for Israel among that demographic. But for conservatives, older Republicans over 40 still support Israel in whopping numbers. But if you go down to the under 35 constituency, it gets lower and lower, and opposition to U.S. aid to Israel completely collapses. And what you actually have seen on the tour that Charlie Kirk was supposed to carry out, where he's had these various sort of guest figures filling his chair, like Megyn Kelly herself, is they are being besieged with questions about Israel, very sophisticated questions, asking about Zionist billionaires like Robert Shillman and Bill Ackman, like they're calling them out by name and asking, do you think we have an inappropriate relationship with Israel? And Megyn Kelly cannot answer the questions. She's deflecting. And she herself is under attack from Israel because she's, kind of a threat to their narrative. So what is Netanyahu doing? He's got his government just hired Trump's former campaign manager. His name is Brad Pascal, to the tune of $1.5 million a month for the next 4 months to recruit Gen Z influencers. All of them are going to be like conservative oriented, anti-woke, race baiters, and to game the algorithm of ChatGPT, to work on mechanisms for making sure that ChatGPT does not deliver answers that interfere with Israel's narrative. And on those influencers, there's a company that's been set up by Israel in Germany. It's sort of like a third party to channel money into these influencers in the US. And according to the contract, if you break down the math, some influencers are getting paid $7,000 per post, which means they could be getting like $100,000 a month. I mean, I don't know how much you're getting for Dialogue Works, but it's like very tempting if you have no soul to just sell out. I mean, one figure who's probably getting millions of dollars, they're recruiting cultural figures. Azalea Banks, this washed up rapper who's sort of a loudmouth on Twitter X, is going to perform in Israel on October 7th. They just straight up bought her. They noticed that she was like trashing Palestinians, so they just bought her. I mean, I guarantee you she's gotten millions of dollars. So these are not the actions of a country that is confident about its narrative and that thinks that it's winning the PR battle. These are the death pangs. It's sort of the death rattle of a multi-billion-dollar Hasbara complex. And, in Washington, D.C., where I am, the city is now filled with these billboard trucks showing images of frightened people on October 7th and atrocities on October 7th. Many of them actually committed by the Israeli military against their own citizens. They're just everywhere in D.C. I mean, there are like dozens of these trucks. Who's paying for it? So they're losing. And Charlie Kirk was really one of the most clear symbols of Israel's propaganda defeat, which is why they're spinning it and doing so much damage control.